Bitcoin's the best performing asset in a decade. So it's been going up at 172% a year, every year for the past 10 years. And we had the opportunity to borrow money at 1.5% interest and invest it in something going up 170% a year.
Wow.
So obviously the arbitrage is extraordinary. And we thought, as long as we can raise cheap capital and invest it in a scarce asset, and there's an expectation of monetary inflation, it made sense for our shareholders to do that. So we eventually ended up buying about $3.1 billion of Bitcoin, and today it's worth something more like $7.5 billion.
Wow.
So we generated a $4 billion gain for our shareholders, and that was good for the stock. That drove the stock from $120 a share above $800 a share. So it generated many, many billions of dollars of shareholder value for the shareholders, and it left us with a software company that was extremely well endowed, right? And so we can go about our business of selling our software and not be concerned about the impact of inflation on our business. Now, our view is we don't want to sell the Bitcoin. Our strategy is acquire and hold Bitcoin. It's just that simple. The company has two primary business strategies. The first strategy, the P&L strategy, is we create and we sell enterprise business intelligence software. And the second strategy is a balance sheet strategy. We acquire and hold Bitcoin. And the way that we acquire the Bitcoin is partially through cash flows. The company generates a lot of cash every single year. And so we're sweeping the cash flows into Bitcoin. And then the second is on occasion, we issue equity. And if we issue equity, then we sweep the proceeds from the equity into Bitcoin. And the third would be to sell convertible debt. And when we sell the convertible debt, we use that to buy Bitcoin. And then a fourth is to sell senior secured debt, like junk bonds. We did an offering like that for $500 million in June. It was senior secured debt yielding 6 1/8% interest. And we invested that in Bitcoin. And in the future, we may do any combination of debt or equity financings or just generate more cash flow in order to acquire more Bitcoin. We also have the $7.5 billion of Bitcoin, and much of it is $6 billion or more is unpledged collateral. So we could generate yield on it with a counterparty if we want, or we could, in theory, borrow against that in the future if we wanted to. And we just consider all those possibilities. It's a function of the debt markets and the Bitcoin markets. If you look at the US dollar, it's been inflating at least 10% a year for the last decade, from 2010 to 2020. And the S&P 500 index was moving up about 10% a year during that time frame. So if you were holding dollars, if you were holding $100 million, then and you weren't invested in the S&P index, then you lost $10 million of gains every single year. Or another way to say it is the value of the cash decreased by about 10% a year. And that means over the course of 7 years, you cut your cash balance in half. Okay, what happened in March of 2020 is the inflation rate tripled. If we look at the S&P 500 index over the last 12 months, it's up 30%. I remember I was saying that the money supply expanded at 10% up until about March of 2000. But we all know that the Fed started buying lots of bonds, $120 billion of bonds every month. After that point, the interest rates got pegged at zero. The money supply expanded. And so we started inflating the money supply 3x, 3 times as fast. That means that $100 million in cash is worth $100 million, but $100 million in a stock index is worth $130 million.
Wow.
At a 30% inflation rate, that means that in about 2.5 years, you cut the value of your treasury in half. So what happened to us in March is we realized that we had 500 million, but if you cut it in half every 2.5 years, you realize that you basically burn $450 million over the decade. We're going to lose it all from the shareholder point of view. The need to find an inflation hedge became much more urgent after March of 2020. The price of everything you want to buy is going up, but the inflation rate is not a scalar. It's not a single number. I can measure the inflation on consumer assets.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.